Hi everybody, welcome to Spirit Breakfast, and it is the end of February. It's the last day of February. This is the end of our 222 series, and it's been a great month, hasn't it? And God has been faithful. We're still here, we're still alive, and we've got beautiful much that we are looking forward to. So I'm just going to read the last verse from the 222 series, and that's Exodus 2 verse 2. And it says, so the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. So this is talking about the birth of Moses. And the backstory of this is that at that time, the children of Israel were still in Egypt, and they were still slaves in Egypt, and they were being very fruitful and multiplying in numbers. And Pharaoh wasn't happy with this, so he had instructed the midwives to kill every male child that was born at the time. But the midwives respected God, so they did not kill these children. And when they were asked by Pharaoh why they were still male children, they basically said that Hebrew women were very quick to give birth, and because of that, they were not getting there in time to kill the male child because he had asked them to kill at the point of birth. And God actually blessed them for the midwives for doing this. But Moses is then born around this time. But then it says the woman conceived, who was Moses' mother, and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him for 3 months. So basically, this is just showing us that if you fast forward to Moses being the man who spoke to God face to face, you can see that Moses had a great destiny ahead of him. God had great plans for Moses in his life. And because of this, even at the point of his birth, he was protected. Because God protects everything, that he's got a wonderful destiny associated with them. So when God has been preserving your life for a long time from so many things, just always remember that God has wonderful plans ahead of you for your life. And because of that, he hides you sometimes from bad things when they're happening. He protects you. He's always got a shield of protection around you and all and everything, because he's got a great destiny ahead for you. And even when you are just a little child like Moses and you know nothing at all, even then God is still protecting you. So even now, as you are grown up and you know more but you're not sure, just always remember that the same way he protected you from the time you were just a little child, he still protects you the same way. And whatever he predestined for your life that you were going to do, that is already ordained for you, is still going to happen, and nothing will stop that. So I hope that blesses you as you remember that, God protects his own. He always makes a way. And what happens after that, if you know the stories that Moses, after he's hidden for 3 months, and then once she could no longer hide him, she put him in a river bank, and then he was picked up, and then he ended up growing up in Pharaoh's home. So he ended up growing knowing the Egyptian way of life, right? The Pharaoh in the Pharaoh's home. So basically became an expert on the Egyptian way of life. So when he actually came to rescue the children of Israel, you can see how that ended up being a perfect advantage for him, because there was nothing he didn't know about Pharaoh and Pharaoh's home, because he grew up there. So, nothing is a surprise to God about what's happening in your life. I mean, like, if you think about it, sometimes, people we feel sorry for ourselves. If you want to get into Moses' shoes, you can be like, oh, I was separated from my parents at a very young age, ended up growing up with people I didn't even know. I grew up not in my culture, and things like that and everything. But what ended up happening was that it was all part of God's purpose, because Moses was actually supposed to grow in Pharaoh's womb, so that he knew everything about the Egyptian way of life, because it was associated with his purpose. So that when he turned up to Pharaoh's court to say, let my people go, he knew the protocols and ways of approaching Pharaoh. And besides that, he was known there, right? Because he'd grown up there. Anyway, he had the connections. He was the guy with the connections, basically. He had grown up there. So just always remember that your life is not a mistake. Everything you've gone through, what you call bad, was not a mistake. what you view now as a disadvantage was not a disadvantage. At some point in your life, it's going to make sense that I see why I went through this, that, and the other. It was all building up to this, right? Um, if you think of Joseph being thrown in the pit, he was in the right place to be sold to go to Egypt, right? He was in the right place for those men to find him at that point and then be sold and go to Egypt because he was going to be a governor in Egypt. And then to turn up at a slave market, and anyone could have bought him, but he ends up being bought to go into Potiphar's house. It's the same thing as exactly what Moses did, ends up growing up in the king's house. And so Joseph is the same, ends up being picked up to be in Potiphar's house. And Potiphar trusted him so much that he entrusted everything to him. I mean, like every single thing in his house. So Joseph became an expert in the Egyptian way of life as well. So when he became governor, he knew everything about Egypt. He didn't need to sit down with someone and say, oh, can you give me a one-on-one on Egypt and explain to me how things work here because I want to be governor. He had been in Potiphar's house the whole time. He knew it all. And then on top of that, he'd been in the prisons as well. So he had all this perspective about, Egypt. So I think it's just a reminder that, when God has a purpose for your life, he can hide you, he protects his purposes, he protects his desires for your life, and he will make sure that everything that is planned for your life will happen, and there's a purpose for your life. So just remember that, and I hope you have a blessed day, and God bless you. Goodbye.